twists and turns. Here we go. So I just am going to give a really brief kind of overview of the kind of the journey that I took to get to where I am now. So early on, you know, I was kind of exposed to a lot of really creative environments. My grandfather, as you can see up here, kind of, he was an engineer, a carpenter, a mathematician, like a crazy mind. And he just was always making stuff. So he'd be carving things with a chainsaw. You know, we'd be driving down the road in his pickup truck and he'd pull over and say, oh, this is a great, you know, tree that's just on the side of the road. Let's pick it up, you know. And I think I really got a lot from him in terms of everything can be art. And he would put a lot of things just right in front of me. Parts of PVC, parts of, you know, screws and plumbing parts, and just say, make something. So I would spend, you know, a couple minutes just kind of looking at everything and looking at things from a more of an aesthetic point of view. Because I was so young, I didn't really understand, like, this is a plumbing part and this is a, you know, a screw, a fastener. I just was looking more of like, oh, that's silver, let's put that thing together and let's stack this, and this is a pile of bricks, let's make a fort, you know. And so he really encouraged me to just kind of unlearn the materials of what they actually were used for and just look at the aesthetics of things. And then the slide next to is my grandmother's studio. This is her pottery studio. And she was very loose with the figure. And she would spin a beautiful bowl, but then she'd also make this really voluptuous kind of, you know, figure and just say, you know, it's all art. You know, we're all seeing things that are art. So everything we're making, everything we're doing, everything we're making with our hands, it's art. So from a young age, I really was exposed to a lot of creative environments and different materials that, thinking about different materials in different ways than they were intended. And after, you know, kind of being around them and growing up in them, I went to college and made a lot of student work and kind of graduated from UC Santa Barbara. And I had sort of a general degree, sort of an art studio degree, where it was a lot of painting and sculpture and printmaking and paper making. It was very broad. So a lot of different types of things. And I could never quite land on where I wanted to be. You know, one quarter it was paper. I'm really into paper. Then one quarter it was, I'm really into printmaking. And I'm really into painting. And I graduated and moved to San Francisco and kind of just didn't really know what to do. And so I just thought, you know, I'm just going to get a whole bunch of different jobs and see what I like. And then I'm going to go to grad school. So I was a landscape architect, drafting plans for parks. I was working for an arborist, measuring trees. I worked at the McClintock building right here, doing graphic design for websites and photo shoots, and just kind of anything I could get. I kind of stayed there until the interest kind of dwindled, and then I would find something else. And I saw this job description on Craigslist that was like, have to be able to build, have to be able to sew, paint, draw, you know, and take pictures, and also sculpt, and also be able to find materials and have a car. That was the big one, have a car. And so I said, you know, I think this is for me. This job description is for me. So I applied and I got it and made some really bad furniture to get the job. They kind of told us, you know, make something you think is our brand. and then we'll rip it apart. And if it is good at the end of our critique, then you have the job. So I made a really bad, bureau, or I stripped, some paint off of something from the thrift store, and they gave me the job. And so I worked at Anthropologie for about 5.5 years. And I got to be known as sort of the wood person at Anthropologie, and they would send me kind of all over. So basically the stores always had seasons, and then within the seasons they had different categories. So you would have to make installations or displays based on signifiers. So this window that I'm showing in the slide was a holiday window that was supposed to reference the zoo. So anything nostalgic that you would think of the zoo. So you think of, and New York. So you think of, okay, there's animals there. Could I make an animal? Or it's Christmas. There's also gifts, and then there's snow, and then there's greens, and then there's lights. So my experience at Anthropologie was really immersive, because you really had to think about every single detail that went into the windows or the interior displays, or basically anything that you made had to have a context. So here's and then you also had to be very creative with problem solving, and with timelines, and with materials, and with budgets. So this whole window was paper, and I think it cost about $200. So using lighting, using things that you had access to. So we got shipment from boxes. What are things coming packaged in? Tissue, cardboard. Do I have a lot of extra paint? What if I paint cardboard? What if I then punch holes and I can stitch it into a long strand? Or what if I put a light behind the tissue paper and then it glows? So just being very, very creative with your materials, your timeline, and your scale. So excuse the picture. This is sort of pre-Instagram and all this kind of stuff. So this is one installation that I made in San Francisco, that they were remodeling the space, and they wanted to kind of reopen it to the public. And so in the main space, there's this large mezzanine, and they wanted to make this kind of like homage to San Francisco. So they kind of put that in my lap. And, the first thing I thought, it was like, San Francisco, the only thing I'm really thinking of is like, rice-a-roni. Like, let's do something with the rice-a-roni. So I emailed rice-a-roni, the company. They sent us a lot of these flat packed packaging boxes, and for free. They're just like, that sounds great. Here's, 3,000 boxes. Where would you like them shipped? So coming up with, okay, what do I do with 3,000 boxes of rice-a-roni? And so the San Francisco store had this awesome mezzanine level where you kind of came in from Market Street to a landing, and then you had this kind of like multi-level mezzanine. So for example, here, coming up with the bridge out of rice-a-roni, dyeing the fabric. This is all drop cloth from a painter's tarp. I think the whole thing cost about $300. So dye for the painter's tarp, patterning out the Golden Gate Bridge and sewing it all together on a sewing machine, dyeing the string to make up the cables, and then figuring out how to make it happen seamlessly. So I just kind of listed on the screen, like all the things that go through your brain, like instantly, that you have to just think of when you're put in this position. So context, material, cost, application, installation, hardware, traffic, color, location, lighting, weight, viewpoint, timeline, person power, like there was so many things you had to consider that just became like automatic, and you didn't even think that it was happening, but these were things that you just kind of became second nature in this job, which I hold so tightly to now because they were invaluable lessons to learn. So I stayed with the company for a number of years. They started sending me all over the place. I went to London, I went to Canada, I went all over the United States to open stores. And it was really, really fun. I learned a lot. I got to meet a ton of really cool people. The only thing that started to kind of resonate with me was they were starting to give us these like inspiration tears, these like, this is sort of the feel of the season, you know, can you make something similar in a similar material that feels slightly different? Can you change the color? Can we change, you know, like little changes? But they were basically giving us other artists' work and asking us to copy. So this is Phoebe Washburn's work. She does a lot of work with like wood and cardboard and screwing things together and making like whole environments, rooms. And I started to get really uncomfortable just duplicating other people's work. And they would give us, you know, stuff like Sheila Hicks, amazing textile artist, and we would make, you know, stuff on the far end where it's very close, like too close. And then the last one really for me was this Arnie Quince piece, where we were just straight up copying his work. And we're like, oh, cool. It's just 1x2s. I can buy a pack of those from Home Depot. I can buy this paint. I can screw them all together. I can even nail gun it, you know, like this is going to be easy. Like this cool traveling installation is amazing. Anyway, it just started to kind of really not feel right to me. So I left. And it was hard at first. You know, that was the backbone of everything that I had learned. I like to think of it as my grad school. The way I think about projects now, I still think of it the same way. Like, who's the client? What are they asking for? What are their contextualizers? What are the things that they want? What's the material that they're asking me for? You know, and that was a hard process to kind of unlearn. Like, what about what I want to make? What about what is important to me? What about what I think? So this is just some like really early work after I left Anthropologie. So doing a lot of carpentry work, some kind of like site-specific things, and some furniture. I got this one client that was like obsessed with turtles. She's out at Muir Beach. You can still see it if you drive down Sunset Way. So this is like a 18-foot by 20-foot turtle on the side of her house that is, I think it's about 15 sheets of marine grade ply. So I had a lot of like freelance gigs that basically I was just doing whatever to basically get food on the table and pay my rent. I had a studio on Market Street it was basically Van Ness. It was across from the SRO. I don't even know if it's there anymore, but it was a basement. It was a condemned building. I think I paid about $400 for the whole space, and it would flood. What else? No ventilation, but it was mine. So I kind of took any and every job I could get. So these, the first slide is these kind of floating tables that are at Bar Crudo, I think still on Divisadero. And then that was a tech office that wanted a bookshelf, and then a retail store that wanted a slab table. So I kind of just said yes to everything and figured it out along the way. And then I got this client. So I had this client that had kind of heard about me through just kind of word of mouth. And he said, I have an idea for a conference table, but I want you to find the wood and I want the table to be a story. So this was kind of my breakthrough project because he had a very large budget and I could be really creative with the idea of it. So all he knew was that he wanted some kind of slab table and that he needed some kind of cord management where multiple people could work at the same table. So this is the same project that I met Evan through at Aborica. So I found the slabs and I kind of, figured it out along the way. I had to cut a hole in my studio floor to get the slabs into my studio to work on them. Again, it was a condemned building, so we kind of just made it work, We're like, let's cut one joist, it's fine. Let's cut two, maybe let's not cut three. But this is sort of like the cowboy kind of figure it out moment when I was younger that I kind of just went for it, I didn't really have any choice. I sort of didn't really think about it and just went for it. So here I am working on it in my studio. And this is the finished piece. But that was sort of the breakthrough piece where it was just sort of like, I can do whatever I want. I just have to figure out the pieces. So I have to figure out where to get the wood. I have to figure out the tools. If I can't do it myself, where can I get it planed or drum sanded or whatever, but I got this, I can figure this out. So this is sort of my breakthrough piece. After that, I did some commercial work. So I did this wine bar. I did all of the woodworking for Beer Ba. So all the shelves, and then this is kind of fun. This was an ADA ramp that after inspection, we installed these hinges that went up and down and would pop up so people could actually sit in the ramp. Kind of fun because it was a very skinny place. Anchor Steam opened its first bar. It's not far from here. And this is my, let's see. Oops, sorry. I did this one first. So this one is a bar that's out on Bernal and Mission. And they're sort of a beer-centric bar that wanted to be kind of voodoo, New Orleans kind of themed. So here I did everything from the tile to the fixtures to the countertop to kind of the displays as well. And, then I did Anchor. And at Anchor, I did the bar, I did the drink rails, I did the anchor that's behind the bar out of hammered copper and wrapped in wood. Curated their can collection, which was really fun to go out to 3rd Street and dig through a container of their old cans and try to organize it in some way. And then also doing all the planning of the brewery behind the bar and the back bar as well with the POS and their drafts as well. So at the same time, I'm still kind of feeling this pull towards making art and doing less interior design. And I saw a handrail that was steamed. So I decided, this is the moment that I need to start steaming things. So I, play around with different techniques and different ideas. And what I kind of end up with is sort of like these spirals. And I start cutting them into kind of these ribs and I called them phases. So making these pieces that are like part wood. It's all woodworking, but it's starting to go more into the sculptural realm while still making furniture. So these were my stump stools that I started making in 2012 or something. West Elm picked them up. I was doing exclusive sales through West Elm, doing drop shipping through them, and kind of having a hard time, trying to find the stumps and slice them and dry them and plane them and sand them and to keep up with the demand. And then also ordering the legs from my friend that was the welder and trying to keep up. You know, we kind of talked about, you know, the purchase ordering of when you can order a large sum versus just, oh, I have to fulfill 5 orders, you know, that's 15 stools. That's, you know, $200. So I got to figure out how to basically just, I was always trying to just keep it running. So I had a lot of plates turning at the same time, but I always wanted to, the squiggles and the knots were my focus. I got this other commercial job, the assembly, and this was sort of the last big commercial job that I did. So here I did all their furniture. Well, I started with their furniture and they kind of let me in the door with the furniture and they said, oh, we really like what you did with the tables, you know, what's your solution for upstairs? And what's your solution for in the kitchen? And what's your solution for our showers? And so I kind of, it was one of those jobs where I walked in through the door and I never left. So I did the tables upstairs and then I did the floating tables in the kitchen, kind of similar to the Barcrudo ones. And then I did the upstairs slab. And then they had these two, they had a workout area in the bottom. It was a very unique space. In the bottom, they had like a workout area where you could do yoga or you could do cardio or you could do Pilates, all these different things. And then you could go upstairs and have your meetings, or you could go out back and have your wine. It was very versatile. But so they came to me and asked me for 2 different outdoor showers. So I made them outdoor showers for, it was very similar to Antho. We're like, this girl likes to go shower in this one. This lady likes to shower in this one. Can you give us 2 different attitudes of shower? So it was a really unique process, or a really unique project, I should say. At the same time, I'm walking through the streets at a farmer's market and I see these 2 gourds and it kind of knocks me on my ass. So I'm literally struck by inspiration. I see these gourds tied in a knot and I just have this like aha moment, like I am meant, why haven't I tried this? And this is what I need to be doing. So these are dipper gourds, and the way that they're formed is basically when they're still growing, they're moved about 1 inch a day. And then once they're in the knot form, they're dipped over kind of a trellis or something, and then the weight pulls them down. So I see these and it just sparks all kinds of ideas. So these are the first squiggles, the first knots that I tied. And then I just kind of deep dive into it. So perfecting the shape, perfecting the knot, and then also trying to think about, you know, my livelihood and what can I sell and what are people thinking of and what's important to me and where do I want this work to go? So, you know, trying different shapes, braid, ring, and thinking about also, you know, the home life and looping in my husband and my kids. I mean, they're the ones making all the noise. They're not making noise. That's great. And making it all work. I also did a little bit of sculpture with the steamed pieces as well. This is a collaborative piece with Linda Fahey, who did the ceramic piece. And then working on different kinds of shapes with, I call these tangles. I also put my kids to work. I'm like, stop crying, sand this piece for me. And then some knot chain. This is the piece on the left is at LinkedIn, just as an installation in one of their think tanks. And then this is at NOPA. And that's kind of my story. I mean, I just found my thing and just kept cooking, you know. Thank you.
Okay. Hybrid mode. I have to get myself into the blue box up here.
We have to stay in the box.
We are now going to open up to Q&A. So I think there's a couple folks on Zoom. We'll grab their questions, but also I'll be running around the room and grabbing questions from the audience also. Step out.
Hi there. Thank you for that. Thank you for that presentation and that reminder that you know, you have to find this balance between what pays and how you can make the things that you are most passionate about
Yes.
pay eventually, or support your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate the way that you were sort of forwarding in some design thinking throughout. I teach in industrial design and graphic design, these areas. And I think it's really important and instructive to help us realize that we can, we can learn from every situation, including the things that we don't want to do. So I really appreciate that, like all that fun stuff you did in Anthropologie. I also come from a fashion design / window moment, you know, oh, let's do this really great thing and then change it next week because the new stuff's coming in. But at a certain point, it becomes really empty.
Right.
And you recognize that, you know, there's something that bothered you and that was potentially unethical if you would continue. So I appreciate that model of thinking, like pushing back on that sort of situation. So I just want to thank you for your work there. I don't really have a question. Unless you want to, can you speak a little bit about your choices, like what you went through when you recognized that I need to do something that is more meaningful, more aligned with my values. And maybe because that might help people understand how to get there in their own work as they're trying to balance, you know, the economics of being a creative artist.
Yeah. I mean, that part is really difficult. So when I left Anthropologie, I'm sorry, should I wait? That part is really difficult. When I left Anthropologie, I had lined up a couple freelance jobs like the turtle lady and there was a birdhouse lady, you know, and obviously those were things that I didn't really love to do. But it was hard. I mean, it's sort of like, okay, I have to make this birdhouse, but I'm gonna make it the best fucking birdhouse, the most modern birdhouse that I can make, you know. So when I didn't have a lot of choice about what the income was going to look like, it was sort of like, okay, I recognize that this is coming to me. This is an opportunity. How can I steer it in my aesthetic? So it was difficult because I remember at Anthro just being like, I can give you whatever you ask for. Like you asked me for Parisian, retro, New York, French Bob, like I could give that to you, like served on a platter. But how do I have my say in it? So I'd say, like, when I first left there, the most important thing was just remembering my value and remembering that, okay, I am hungry and I do have to take every job that I can take, but they're hiring me for a reason. So I'm going to steer them and tell them to, you know, look, and this is, you know, pre-Pinterest, pre-Instagram, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure it's even more difficult now, but just to sort of say, you know, don't give me an inspiration picture from something that you found. Tell me what you want and I'll tell you what I would like to make for you. So trying to figure out your voice within their project, I guess, because you don't want to just say, you don't want to come out of the gates and just say, you know, F you, like you don't, like you're not giving me modern and Buckminster, you know, like I want to give you what you want, but So dealing with the customer and feeling out what they want, but then also making it work for you, I think was a big part of it.
Any other questions?
How exactly do you ask for 3,000 boxes of rice rona?
It's actually easier than you think. I just went to their website and I wrote an email and I emailed like sales, customer service, like advertising. I just like found all the emails, like the 12 emails, and I just sent the same message over and over. You know, I'm an artist. I want to make something that honors San Francisco and honors the Rice-A-Roni legacy. And I'd like to make some kind of sculpture, you know, could I have this many boxes or something like that? I mean, there's a lot to be said about grassroots efforts in that kind of experience. It's just, there's a lot that comes from just knocking on the doors or finding the emails and sending just an email. It's like, hey, I want to make this thing. You know, would it be okay if you sent me this? I could send you pictures or whatever, but just kind of putting it out there. I've had a lot of good experience with just kind of, you know, I think this is the person I should talk to, and maybe this would come from it. And if it doesn't, that's okay, you know?
Thank you, Katie. I think there is one question that came in from the webinar. I'm gonna ask you my question first. I think
Oh,
it's a good way to
okay.
answer this. It's interesting to see how your practice went from like the manipulation of many, many different kinds of materials. And now in your current practice, it's almost this very simple palette of a single material, a single process, and all of its capabilities. And you have a very successful product of this. But I'm curious how you, I think as a person who has worked in design myself, I look at my time in the industry as something that's paved the way for where I am now in many ways. And so I'm curious about the connection between what you learned from being, in the industry and then building your own business, and how those two things are intertwined.
That's a big question.
I'm sorry.
That's a big one. I think maybe I'll start at the end. I think working in just rattan helps me stay in my lane. So in my art practice, there's so many sizes that I can work with, and there's this determined length that I can work in. And from that, I'm able to kind of create not a fixed number, but a few pieces. And I think working in those kind of constraints help me, because I have experience working in so many materials. I mean, my stepdaughter will tell you that when we're trying to come up with costumes or ideas for projects or whatever, I'm like, or you could do this, or you could do that, or we could get this kind of material, or you could do that. And it's overwhelming sometimes. So for my art practice, it's actually really refreshing that I have certain constraints that I work in. So I know, the length that I can get, I know the diameter that I can get and what I can do with those things. So it's sort of limiting, but it's good for me because I have the kind of brain that will just go. So in terms of my art practice, I feel like it really helps me stay in my lane with my material.
Thank you. I think it's such a design idea, like having parameters to work within. So that you're a maker and a designer is why we wanted to invite you here, of course, but it's really looking for you to speak about that relationship to where you come from. I do have a question from the Q&A, which I'm posting right now. And it says, someone in the Zoom audience is asking, say, I've been working in the local bookshop as an illustrator bookseller for almost 10 years. Too many years. What advice would you give to a young artist looking to graduate from the long-term day job?
That's hard, really tough. I mean, it's hard because, you know, you have to keep the lights on and food on the table. And I would say, you know, just keep trying to be creative. Keep trying to be creative with the materials that are in front of you. So it doesn't have to be a huge investment in a material that you get before you make something. Find something that doesn't cost you any money or that costs very little that you can just really be creative with. And trying to just find the joy in that instead of trying to find the dollar bills, because I feel like so often people are just like, I have to make money. I have to find the product. Like I have to identify what it is that I'm going to make that's going to set, you know, the trajectory for my whole life. And so many people want to find that out early on, and it's not easy. You know, I saw this gourd and it changed my life. Like it, you know, so one, just keep making with things that don't cost a lot of money, that just keep your hands busy. Like I understand that, like, you just have to make things sometimes. Like it doesn't matter if it's paper, it doesn't matter if it's felt, it doesn't matter whatever it is. Sometimes you just have to, it's like a challenge, you know, like, oh, I want to be a tree, or I want to be I want to make a table, I want to make a magazine rack, you know, like finding little projects that spark joy and being creative about the ways that you go about it are the ways that you stay interested in it.
Anyone else?
That was wonderful. I mean, you make it sound so easy, but the sort of ease by which you're figuring stuff out, making giant installations. I mean, it's amazing, actually. You know, I'm really amazed by that capacity to feel at ease with problem solving like that in the moment. So I'm kind of wondering, is there, like, where does your ambition go, right? Is there a project or something you would really love to do that you think would be a challenge for you? Because it seems like it can take on pretty much anything. What would be the ambitious project?
I'm hoping to do some large scale landscape installations in the future. I'm really inspired by, you know, the Christo running fence, and I think it would be incredible to do kind of an homage to that and do like a squiggle running fence or something like that. I'd love to get outside. I'd also say that, you know, the ease with which I'm saying like a lot of these projects have happened, like it's also really hard. And, you know, I've gotten the anchor stuck in a door in my studio in the Tenderloin, getting it out, you know, like, well, I thought I could just lift it this way and it would, you know, fit out the door, or I thought that I could just have people walking down the street helping me through, you know, with my car, that they would just like wave me through and then the police pull me over. You know, there's been all kinds of things that have happened with these installations. And I think the important thing to remember is just, you know, what's the end goal? I'm going to be through here in 10 minutes. So can you just let me through? Or, you know, what can I do? Can I come help? Can I come sort books for you if, you know, you give me 10,000 for this installation I'm going to do, or just being creative. I think that's one of the strengths that has really helped me is what's the end goal? You know, like I'm trying to do this thing. It's not really by the book, but how can we make it work? So.
I think, again, not doing it by the book is exactly why. It's been great to have you in the shop this semester. I think. I'd love to ask you some questions, but I'll tell you. Are there any other questions?
I was just curious to know, hi, thank you for
Hi.
the presentation. How you stay inspired? Like what keeps you going, you know?
That's a hard question. So I'm a mom. I have a lot of kids and it's difficult, you know, like trying to prioritize your time is really hard. You're like, I have to sleep for this amount of time, but I need to be in the studio for this amount of time and I need to be, you know, mom for this amount of time. So staying inspired and also like making sure to carve out that time is sometimes difficult. But I'd say the main way I stay inspired is just like staying in the studio and cleaning the studio and doing the work and finding the routine practice and sketching as well when I have the time. I mean, it's difficult because I don't have as much regular time as I used to have, obviously, because I have these children. You know, like when I do have the idea, like making sure to optimize and making sure to like put them to bed early so that I can like explore, you know, so it's just really like tapping into like when I'm in the mode, because it's really difficult because sometimes I really want to be the mom. And sometimes I really want to be the artist, and sometimes I want to be the wife, and sometimes I want to be the stepmom, and sometimes I want to be, you know, the businesswoman. Like there's so many hats that I have to wear. And then like, I feel like the hat that's like floating that like I sometimes try to grasp is like the inspiration, you know, like there's so many hats that I wear that I try to make time for. But truly for me, like staying inspired is like seeing natural knots occurring in nature, you know, so going on a hike or seeing things that are like naturally knotted, or like seeing like when a piece of wood will like grow around something else, you know, like I love that kind of thing. Like if I just have to say, like when I see something I'm inspired, like that. But I also find a lot of inspiration, I draw a lot of inspiration just from like the practice of like I clean the shop, I then set up the steamer, then I like routine really helps me. And that's probably just because my home routine is like a little crazy with babies, but that's what I would say.
I think the discipline that you have in your life is coming through in how you're working with our students. There's like a really nice efficiency, but creativity in their projects, and also I think the way you work with them. So it's great to see.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Personally, as someone who's pretty risk adverse or afraid of change sometimes, I find it pretty inspiring that step you took from doing the Anthropologie window installations for so many years and the stability that came with that. And for you to finally, you know, follow your gut and go down a different path. I'm wondering, after you left Anthropologie, were there ever moments where you kind of longed for that old position and old space you used to be in, and sort of having, I guess it was pretty prescriptive, like they told you what you wanted, it's kind of like quote unquote easy in that sense. I'm wondering, yeah, if you ever longed for that, and if you did, what did you remind yourself of, or like what did you tell yourself to kind of overcome that?
That's a good question. It was really hard when I left, actually. I felt like somebody died, like the routine of going to the store and clocking in and going to the wood shop. It was really hard. I actually haven't been in another anthropology since I left, which was, it's a long time. And I made some of my best friends at Anthropologie. But when I left, it was just difficult. I couldn't agree with it anymore. They were starting to rip off artists and try to kind of get us to just copy people and just change little things that would like get them out of lawsuits kind of. And I had a hard time with it. So when I left, it was difficult because I felt like I didn't have this like sense of, my wood shop. I didn't have a studio when I left. I didn't have a wood shop. And so I just started to kind of like put the same things into place that I had there, but for myself. So I rented a studio. I, started buying tools and I started just filling it up with all the things that I would need to do the same job, basically, but do it from my point of view. So I'd say, it's difficult because when you leave school or when you're in school and you get this job, it sounds so dreamy, right? They're going to pay me to sift through plastic bottles and I'm going to cut them and I'm going to make this flower irrigation garden spring display. It's going to be so fun until it like sprays you in the face. And then you're like, whose mouth was on this? It's gross. So I just tried to do what they did for me, but for myself. So what are the things that I like to do? And what are the things that I agreed with at the store? Because they did have some really good practices. So who is the customer? Who is this lady or person? And what are they interested in? What are the things that make this person? So it's vintage records, it's slides, it's it's shellacked, waxed paper, like down, like the thought that went into it, I think is the important part. So when I left there, just trying to make it work, but for myself was the important part. Yeah. But it was really hard. For a long time, I was like, what did I do? It's hard.
This might be our last. You ready? Last question.
You guys are saving, that's the last, right? Okay.
Hi.
Well, to close this off, I just want to say thank you for your presentation and telling us about your story. And to piggyback a little bit on you, trusting your gut to lead anthropology and pursuing your path or career to where you're at now. And I think intuition probably plays a huge role into that. And as a creator, as an artist, how do you think intuition plays into creativity overall, and then with yourself as well?
That's a good question. I would just say, trusting your gut and knowing when situations feel good and knowing when situations don't feel good. I had one situation where this guy, he told me, he said, oh, I want all my cabinets redone. Come to my house and let me show you my cabinets. And they're just so bad. And they were like pristine, like down to the 30-second, beautiful, like a celebrity person. And poured me, tequila and let's do a shot. This is gonna be a great, experience, all this stuff, and I knew in my gut, this is weird, this is strange, how did he hear about me? How did this happen? Why am I here? You know, like all these things going on. And I would just say, like, your intuition, your gut is telling you something for a reason. You know, like you need to leave sometimes. Like as hungry as I'm saying I was, and that I wanted to put food on the table and that I wanted to pay my rent, it also is important to realize that some projects aren't right for you. So this is an example of a project where it just was not a good fit. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel comfortable. He made me feel really weird, you know, like, so trusting what's happening in your body when you go to people's houses, or you go to certain sites or whatever, like paying attention to that, like trusting your gut is like the way to go. I know it sounds like so simple, but it really is. And that's something that I always did. It's just, this feels strange. You know, I'll find some other way to buy my PBRs or whatever.
Would you say you do that with your work as well? That you're that committed in terms of like using your instinct with your art?
Yeah, you know, using the same instinct with my artwork, I definitely do. You know, I would say, you know, sometimes people will ask me like, can we do it this way? Or can we change it slightly and have it, you know, be this color? Can we? So it's always a fine line, you know, like trying to remember like what's important. Is this something that's going to be so far out of bounds that makes me feel uncomfortable? Or is it something that's like still within the realm of the idea, which the idea is just the idea of like opportunity, you know, the idea of flexibility, the idea that like anything is possible. So I would say also to that point, like always being open, like not being closed, like this is my work. This is like exactly what it means. Like, so, I mean, sometimes the best practice is also to just be open. So you're just like, you know what, this wasn't what it was about, but I could see it going that way, or like, this is kind of interesting, like why, let's try it, you know? So I definitely try to like welcome differences and opportunities and like ways that the work can kind of evolve for sure.
Said last question, but I have to ask. You're good? Thank you, everyone. This is a really wonderful conversation. Oh, gee, sorry. No, no.
I don't want to revisit back to the leaving anthropology, but how did that conversation go? Did you like call them out and then leave, or did you just sort of?
Oh, it was gnarly.
Oh, juicy.
It was gnarly. Okay, I'm ready. Let's give it. I'll give it to you. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's juicy gossip. So let's see. So I had just been promoted. So I was the Bay Area senior display person. So I was overseeing like all the stores. So I oversaw San Francisco, San Jose, Roseville, but I also had my own store. And it was a lot, and it wasn't that much money to take the big pay cut. I felt like it was like the horse with the carrot, you know, like when I finally got it. And then I think my partner and I, because at that point we were at the same level because I'd been promoted, we like were doing sketches for the window, and I don't know what happened, but they thought that my sketches were like defamatory or something. So they had gone in my purse. So I had the sketches, and I went to work the next day. They went through my purse. It was kind of gnarly. I don't know if we want to talk about this, but it was kind of gnarly. So they went through my purse. They found these sketches that were defamatory, which were not, and they fired my boss because they did not like him. And so I just quit because I didn't agree with it. I didn't understand it. And I thought it was really bad. I thought it was gnarly. And I didn't want to be aligned with it anymore. Like I'd already had too much with the artist copying, and then they had just kind of like unlawfully fired my partner for nothing. And so I just said, you know what, I quit too. So that's sort of what happened. That's the real story. Yeah, I just was like, this is not cool. You know, if you're gonna fire him for the sketches, you gotta fire me too. So, and they kind of were like, we're not gonna fire you. You're fine. And they gave me like a slap on the wrist. I was like, no, 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 you gotta fire me too. So I left.
Always good to end with a little gossip.
Yeah, that was hot gossip.
No, it's not gossip, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yes, that was, sorry about that. That's absolutely true. Supposed to slide
It's
in.
about integrity.
Yes. Thank you, Katie, for coming and spending the semester with us and giving this artist talk tonight. I think I have so much to say about your career, and you know, there's so many interesting intersections with the value of making, especially when it comes to industry, how those positions are named in particular ways, and so I think, you know, makers are taken advantage of quite a bit in large industry. So it's a really interesting perspective to hear you. But I think for me, the most interesting thing about your practice, of course, is you've emerged into your own work as your context, which I think is a really remarkable thing as someone who's just been working really hard and, you know, making it real. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate you all